That's what people give a shit about, right?
Well, people give a shit about a lot of things.
Yeah, but I mean, as far as games, that is the big one that just came out. So you did not play the original. You have not played this one.
I have not played either
This
of them,
isn't.
no.
These aren't really up your alley.
No, everyone's talking about how hard they are, and I cannot be fucked.
Why do you not like games like this? First off, because it's kind of like they're like these are made like Souls like essentially. They're made to be difficult on purpose.
Yeah, I don't like the repetition. I get bored. So like it's not like I don't necessarily like a challenge in games, even though like I mean, I guess um most of the games I play don't require much of a challenge because I play a lot of like cozy games. But I don't like the repetition of it. I don't like having to do a boss or a zone over and over and over again. I get bored and frustrated, and yeah, that aspect of those games is like very much not for me. I have ADHD. I can't be doing that shit.
Yeah, I mean it's it's made for a certain demographic. Obviously, I'm part of that demographic. I love that shit because I like kind of working through the problem and getting better at it. So I don't think of it as I'm doing the same thing over and over again. I'm like, oh, okay, like let's improve to make this happen. So it's like it just kind of like depends how you feel about that, about the challenges. But I will say some of the challenges in this game, we're going to get into it later because we are going to start with that. But there's some iffy moments, let's say,
Right.
which we
Yeah.
will. I there's some unhinged comments for sure, which I love. I'm not complaining about it. Um, we'll get into that soon. I do want to start with some of the positives, though,
All right, hit me.
before we start blasting some of this stuff.
Maybe we start with the negatives and
You
end
want
on a
to you want to
positive note.
start blasting?
Yeah, let's start
Well, so
blasting
so
and then
here
end it on a positive note because you did enjoy the game.
I loved the game. The game's awesome.
Yeah,
I
so
didn't just
maybe
enjoy
let's
it. I
just
loved it. But
yes, let's. I think we start with what sucked
do you
first.
some of these human beings are soft though? You know what I mean? Like they need like the sandwich. Should we sandwich them? They're like a little nice and then like the really mean shit and then a little nice at the end. I just don't like they're very sensitive, these gamers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because like this is some people, it's their whole personality is wrapped up into one game. I get it. I understand. I've dealt with WoW gamers. That's what they're like. WoW and League, I think, are two big ones. Where it's just the whole person's personal identity is wrapped into this one game.
it's like funny that you brought up WoW and League because I was like, I don't like repetition, but I've played both of those games, and those games are just doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, but it's like the way you don't just lose to the same thing over and over again, really.
Yeah, yeah, it's H1. It's the same but different.
Yeah, so it's just like it depends if you like that. So I'll start off with some positives. The price, right? I did want to talk about the price a bit.
All right,
I
yeah.
think this is the first game that I've ever played in my life that I looked at the price and I was like, why is it $20? You know what I mean? I literally was looking at it like, why am I not spending more on this game? Not as like a bad thing,
Right,
where I
right.
was like, I should give them more money. So those were my initial thoughts because there was no price point. They just kind of released this game out of nowhere. I think like 2 weeks before the release, they're like, "Hey, we're gonna release it. Enjoy, bitches."
Yeah.
Um, so I thought that was funny when I looked at that. But then I saw comments online. There were some like developers complaining about it. It feels very similar
Of
to like Elden
course.
Ring and Baldur's Gate 3, how there were a bunch of developers complaining about the game. Don't expect it was essentially the same. It was the same exact thing all over again. Don't expect this. There were some of them like that were saying us indie developers we can't just price everything this low. They're setting a precedent. It's like nobody, every normal human being knows that they should have charged more than $20. You can charge more for your game. Like these guys, I don't know what it is. They just give the bro discount. Like these guys that make this game, because I think it's like a team of three.
Yeah, it's
They
like a small indie team.
they're extremely small. They just there's I don't know a lot about these guys, but they just like people or something. Like they like the game. They are pro gamer, which I know I'm saying like I'm complaining, but I'm not complaining about it. It's just the way they are. But I just think it's funny how other people just make it about them. And they're like, I can't
Right,
believe
yeah.
they're doing this. They're screwing XYZ person over. It's like, just shut the fuck up. Like, they're doing something that they want to do. They're being nice, you know? I feel like the game should have been $40, in my opinion. I think the first game was either 15 or $20. But I think through the first game, they've earned a higher price point, but they decided not to do a higher price point. That's their call. I think any fans of the original one would have paid 40, and I think it would have been, I mean, honestly, they could have charged 60 if they'd wanted. Most fans would have paid it, but the 20 was kind of wild. But if they wanted to do it, that's good on them.
Didn't the game crash Steam when it first released?
Yeah, I mean, millions and millions of people like instantaneously wanted it. The fans are fanatical.
I think it's that freaks game devs out, like from these like AAA games or whatever. I think it's stuff like that actually freaks them out more than anything, because like these AAA titles, like they're not crashing systems anymore. They're not.
Yeah, because nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah,
Like, obviously, some of these AAA games will have more people that play it than Silksong had, but they don't have as many people waiting outside of the movie theater. You know what I mean? You don't have that midnight release where people are like dressing up and shit. Like, people care more about this, so they're like waiting, you know?
yeah. The fans are more diehard.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a more tight knit community rather than like the next FIFA that comes out or whatever, you know? It's like way more
Yeah,
people play that shit, but like they're going to play it when they can, not like the second it gets released.
right. Yeah,
But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny. I mean, I just think most people understand that it should be more than $20. I don't think they just assume other games will have to lower their price because of Silksong. It's just a positive by them, but I think it's funny that these other developers are like trying to say it's a bad thing or don't get used to it. It's like just shut up. I'm so tired of these motherfuckers.
I mean, I think as entitled as gamers are, there is some validity to that, though, where if indie companies keep releasing games for cheaper prices, they will be like, why am I paying $60 for games that are half the time not even as good as these indie games? Like, why would I not just like play these other games?
Yeah, I mean maybe to an extent, but I don't think in general, I don't know if I've ever paid $60 for an indie game. But I think this
Yeah.
one could have charged 60 if they had wanted to, because I think it's worth it. And I think they proved that it was worth it off of their first game. They just chose not to charge 60. I think 40 would have been fine, but they chose 20.
How much was Expedition 33?
I think it was 40. I wanna say it was 40. That one should have been 60 as well, realistically, but they chose, it's like they're a smaller developer, they chose 40. Um
I don't think they knew what they had.
Maybe. I mean, either way, like the cost of these games is significantly lower than the AAA titles. So, like them charging 40 and them having, I think they've sold over 4 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, what is that? 160 million?
Yeah.
And then obviously some of that's going to go to Steam. Obviously, they had development costs, but they made a fuck ton of money. You know what I mean?
Right, right, right. Yeah, for sure.
So whether it's 40 or whether it's 60, and that one though, there might have been some barrier if it was 60, less people might have bought it, right? Because I'm
Yeah.
sure there were some people where it's a genre maybe they've never played before because they're younger, so they weren't 100% sure if they wanted it, and that 40 to 60 jump maybe would have dissuaded some of them. So I think there might have been some benefit in that one being 40. But like if Expedition 33 makes a second game, it realistically should be 60 because
Absolutely.
they've proved that it should be through the first one. You know what I mean? And that's just what the same way I feel about Silksong is like they kind of already proved that they deserved a higher price point. So I would have been comfortable with paying more. And that's why I was a little shocked when I saw it was 20, but these guys are bros. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
legit they like I remember they made DLC for the first one and it was free. They just you know what I mean? Like they aren't normal. But also I don't really judge other companies off of them cuz I know they aren't normal.
Yeah. Right, yeah, yeah.
You just kind of like these guys and in a way though they have become gaming sweethearts at this point where people want to protect them. So some people are giving these like softball reviews on them for this game, which while I do like
Yeah.
them, I refuse to do. So, we're going to get into that, but I do think the price point was kind of funny and then developers complaining about it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, it being released out of nowhere was interesting. I know I read in some fashion they didn't really want this like play testing time. They also didn't give companies and review places the ability to review it. They wanted everybody to experience the game the same, I think.
Yeah, with like no expectations essentially. Or I mean there's some expectations because of the first game, but you know what I mean.
I saw a bunch of like places complaining about that too, about how they like I don't remember the exact stuff I read. It was a few weeks ago. I don't know. It was just like self-righteous, journalists saying like how important their job is and how they like fucked the industry and stuff. I was just like, just shut up. I'm so tired
I
of
don't
these
even
people.
I don't even like trust most of their reviews on games
Nobody
though.
does. These motherfuckers are like Watch Mojo. They're putting like weird shit at number one just to rage bait you.
Or like they're just clearly paid by the companies
Mm-hmm.
to just like slurp the game.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah. They're getting like these kickbacks. Yeah, I know. I feel like most people for reviews of even like movies, games, they usually are just going to YouTube for like individual people because they know those people aren't bought essentially.
yeah,
So
exactly.
they're gonna get a real review. But yeah, I thought that was interesting as well. Um, I guess you know what? Let's start with what some people have to say about this game. You have some like reviews, right? I like this first one that you sent me.
Yeah, that's the one I was looking at. It says absolute cinema. This game has improved on Hollow Knight in every way. The amount of content you get for $20 is unreal. The things that were wrong with the original, a slightly confusing and slow opening, etc., have been addressed aggressively, and the things that were good with the original have been heavily improved upon. This game is harder than Hollow Knight, and that's a good thing. The movement and combat have all been tuned to a satisfying hypothesis. I cannot recommend this game enough. If you have never played a Metroidvania slash Souls like, this is the one to play. 10/10 absolute Shaw.
What in the fuck is Shaw?
Bruh, I don't know. I'm too old.
Did they mistype something or are we just idiots?
I don't know.
Maybe both.
Yeah, but I think maybe we're just old.
Yeah, that might be it. Um, yeah. So first off, because I forgot I slurped a little bit with the early stuff, but I'll do a bit of a glaze at the start before I go in on this. I think this game is excellent. I think this is a 9 out of 10 game, I would say, in my opinion. Um, I think that the original is weird because in most genres people really protect the old titles and rightfully so. This is a genre where Hollow Knight, it just in general, I feel like is regarded as the best game in that genre. In like the Castlevania Metroid kind of genre of
Yeah.
like combat and platforming kind of. So I think Hollow Knight's essentially a perfect game. I think it's a 10 out of 10 game. I do not think this is that. but I don't think it's bad. Like everything that's good about the original game, I think is still good about this one. With that being like exploration, hard bosses, the world in general. You know, just like everything that was good about Hollow Knight's still good in this one, but there are some flaws with this one. And I've seen reviews like this where they just say the game, like that they said they improved on every single thing in the original game in this review, right? Didn't he say something like that?
Yeah.
Lie. That is a complete lie. Um, that's actually my biggest issue with the game is like they went for some things, right? I think a lot of people that I see online they're complaining about the difficulty. I think that's part of the problem, but I don't think that's the whole problem. I think if it was just the difficulty, this game it would be flawed, but it still might be a 10 out of 10 essentially. But I do think we should start with the difficulty because there's a few complaints that keep coming up. I think some of them are unjustified, some of them are justified of stuff
Right.
that I keep that are kind of reoccurring themes.
Yeah.
So one of the big reoccurring themes in the difficulty is people complaining about double mask damage. Just damage because when you get hit, it's not like you get hit for like 1 through 100. You just get hit for 1 or 2 damage in this game, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times in the first one, 2 damage was reserved for bosses. In this one, a lot of the normal enemies will hit you for 2 damage. Um, and you could say that's unfair, but in a way, they need to make the game harder because people are already good at it from the first one. And then B, I don't think it's unfair the way that they did it because most of the enemies they have a 2 damage move. They don't just hit you for 2 damage across the board. And that move in general has a tell of some kind. It has some visual and it usually has a visual and a sound component to it. So while these new enemies are a little annoying maybe the first time you see them because you don't know what their 2 damage move is, once you know, you're like looking out for something.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? So I
Yeah.
don't think that they did the 2 damage. Everybody complaining about the 2 damage mask. I think I am on the side of get good for that
Right.
stuff because I do really think you just need to pay more attention and realize like it's not a cross. If every single time you got hit it was 2 damage, I would agree. But that's not actually the case. And that's kind of what the way people are arguing it online is they're making it seem like that's what it is, and that's not what it is. So I think there are pretty decent tells for all of the 2 damage. The only annoying thing is the very first moment you meet a new enemy. But after that, you should be fine. You should be, and like you should know, you should be looking out for something. You should be beating yourself up when you get hit by the 2 damage stuff, not being like, this game's unfair, you know?
Right.
So that I disagree with. And that's a lot of the complaints, but some of the other complaints I agree with. And that's essentially how the game kind of wastes your time. And they do that through various methods. I think in the original game, there was less platforming.
Right.
Essentially, in the original game, there were sections that were extremely hard platforming, and that's all you were doing. In this game, there's way more platforming, but it's not as hard in general. But there's a couple there's way more sections that are like medium difficulty platforming. It was like a little time consuming, I guess. And since it's medium difficulty and it's not high difficulty, I never beat any of those sections and felt like gratification in any fashion. You know, I never felt like, oh, I did something. You know what I mean?
Right.
I more so just felt like, oh, I guess I got through that, you know? I never felt good after doing any of these like medium difficulty ones. And then the biggest sin, I think, though, is having like a boss after a medium difficulty platforming section. Because it's like in these kind of games, in Dark Souls games, there's a decent shot that I one shot a boss, right?
Right.
Or like 2-shot it or something. Like there's a decent in these games. There's not a great shot that you're. For most bosses, you are not one-shotting them because for the bosses, if you just bump into them, you take 2 damage. Not even if they attack you. They move in odd ways. So like the first time you fight them, you might accidentally just bump into them a couple times. While the tells are decent, the bosses move in such different ways and attack in such different ways that usually the first couple times you kind of just get smoked. So while
Right.
I do think I probably do better than most players, like I still do get smoked the first few times I generally fight a boss. Um, so when you have like some, even if it's like a low run back, if it's some 2 minute run back to a challenging boss, that feels really fucking annoying. When I think about it, that's really how Dark Souls started in Demon Souls. Generally, the boss was just at the end of the level. And they kind of realized through making those games, that's not a good idea.
Right.
So they stopped doing it. And just in general, when you play the games now, there's like always bonfire before a boss. You know what I mean? So I don't understand really that change. The first time that the most frustrating early point where you get that is there's a boss at the end of Act 1. And I would say he is the first challenging boss in the game. I think most of the bosses before that, I'm like, beating them pretty quickly. He was the first boss where I fought him once. And I was like, this guy's going to take a few tries, you know?
Yeah.
Because he kind of smoked me really quick. I hadn't seen all of his moves yet. He like threw a thing, it hit me, and then he brought it back to him, and it hit me again. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, there's a few things to learn here. And before that boss, there was, it was like a 2 minute platforming section. It wasn't long, but it's kind of
Right.
like since I knew I was going to have a few tries on that guy, I already going into that second one was like, this is annoying. So
Yeah.
before I even tried it, I was like, well, let me go search around the rest of the world because I haven't explored everything else because I know this guy's going to take a minute. And that kind of section of the game is very frustrating. Because I remember, so at that point, I hadn't done Sinner's Road, I think is what it's called. And there's like a lower section of essentially, oh God, what's it called in Dark Souls? What's that swamp area called in Dark Souls that everybody hates? I don't know how I forgot it. Blight Town.
Yeah. Yeah. Blighttown.
It's essentially a fucking Blight Town. So they've got this section in the game where there's just a bunch of flying enemies with spikes everywhere. And then you do that section. There's a save point that you can't access until you go around it. So I know initially I didn't find a way to get the save point. And I'm like, oh, I'll just go past it, whatever. I searched under it in a different zone. I searched over it in a different zone. But the actual answer was there was like a wall I didn't see in the zone. So I didn't have access to the save point in Sinner's Road. I go past Sinner's Road. I go to the left, and there's a fucking there's a maze area with ghosts. Now, partially this is my fault because I attacked the ghosts and they made a different sound than normal and they're ghosts. So I just
Mm.
thought they were invincible. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because they're fucking ghosts and I attacked it and it made a weird noise. So I'm like thinking in my head, these guys are invincible. It's like a maze where there's a bullshit way to solve the maze. And then there's these ghosts everywhere. When you get to the halfway point of the maze, there's like double the ghosts. And I just thought you couldn't even kill those things. So that area felt impossible to me. It wasn't actually impossible. It was easy once I realized it wasn't easy, but it was much easier once I realized I could kill the ghosts. So
Yeah.
I go through that zone without a save point in Sinner's Road. And then I just fail a bunch of times, right? Because it's way harder than it should be because I'm doing it wrong. So partially this is my fault, like I said. But then I'm like, okay, I need to get this save point, right? So then I figure out how to actually get the save point. And then I go up there and I go to the right instead of the left. And then there's a fucking Blight Town. And at this point, I've got this fucking boss that I need to parkour to for 2 minutes to get to him that I know is going to be a tough boss. I've got what I think are invincible ghosts to the left. And then I've got fucking Blight Town to my right. And I'm like, what? Is this game just here to upset me? What is going on? So in a way, I think some of the difficulty is not difficult, it's frustrating.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And
It's
it's like,
annoying instead of challenging.
yeah, and I never felt that way in the first game. I never felt like there were frustrating sections, and this is the biggest thing, which I'll talk about later, but there's a reason why I think this is more frustrating than normal. But I guess I'm not done with the frustration yet. So what ends up happening though is there's two ways to get to Act 2. This path didn't even matter also. This other path I was going, it was just a different way to get to Act 2 That first way with that tougher boss and the parkouring before him, he was the other way. He was like the main way to get to Act 2.
Okay.
So also on top of that, this path didn't even matter either. At the end of the day, it's just like I think most people they want to explore most of the stuff in this game because these games really cater to people that like to explore, right?
Right.
So it's like I'm going, and I guess part of the deal is they wanted to make it a little hard before you get to Act 2. But if you're doing both of those paths at the same time, it's very annoying. But I end up doing the Act 1 boss after these sections. And I didn't even struggle with him that much. It was probably like 8 deaths or something like that. But those 8 runbacks or 9 runbacks, whatever I did, were so fucking annoying. Because when you're trying to get better at doing a boss, all you want to do is fight the boss. I don't want to do any of this fucking parkour. I just want to fight the boss immediately and get better at it. And I think there also is some sense of your hands start to fatigue a little bit from doing all the parkouring.
Right.
So now you're getting worse at doing the boss because you're fatiguing out and you're like doing too many inputs. And also you're forgetting some of the moves that he does. You just want to like be like, okay, this is what I fucked up on last time. I'm not going to fuck up on this time. But instead of instantly going to that mindset, you're like jumping around and like jumping off of shit.
Right.
But then there's this sense of the community of like, we'll just get better. And it's like, yeah, that's true. In my if I play this game again, which I will play it again at some point, I'm not going to really struggle at any of this shit. But what I'm saying is, as a first playthrough, the thing that indicates if I want to play it a second time or if I want to continue playing, it was frustrating. Like, there's different points of this game where you're like, why is this difficult boss gated behind, 2-3 minutes of parkouring?
Right. Yeah.
Like, why? Like, this wasn't in the first game. Why is this here? There was a point that was egregious later. It was actually in the higher points, which you can't get to at the point that I'm talking about. It's later in the game, but it's the second section of Blighttown where you have to do a fuck ton of parkouring. It's a very long, medium platforming section where it's not like overly difficult. It's just kind of annoying. You get to a bench and then you do more parkouring. You get to a boss. And then that boss has, you have to do 2 minutes of parkouring again to get to that boss. You get to that boss. It's not just a boss. It's an arena fight where you fight a bunch of waves of enemies. I forget how many waves it is. Maybe it's like 6 or 7 or something. And then after that 6 or 7 waves, it's a boss. And the boss, again, is not wildly difficult. It's not one of the harder bosses. But after you've done all that shit, you don't want to do that shit again.
Right. Yeah. Understandable.
You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think that boss took me a lot of tries either. It was like 8 tries, something like that again. Like, he wasn't overly easy to where you're one-shotting him, two-shotting him, but he's not like a wildly hard boss either. And I think if I didn't have to do all that extra shit before, like the arena fight and the parkouring, I probably would have beat him in 3 or 4 tries. But instead it took 8 because I'm doing all that other shit. I'm not just focusing on getting better at him. And those like 8-9 tries was like probably like an hour and a half or something because it takes so long to get to fighting him. Like, all these waves of enemies, they aren't quick. You know what I mean? All the running around is not quick. It's probably like 10 minutes per attempt. And then when you're getting decent at fighting him, but you don't beat him yet, the fight with him is long.
Yeah.
So after I won that fight, I didn't feel good about it. I felt relieved that I didn't have to do it again. You know what I mean? Like, there wasn't that feeling of like, oh shit, this was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think while there's times where you do have that feeling, there's other times in the game where it feels like that, where you just kind of like felt like, oh, the frustration's over. And most of it is tied to having to do horse shit before the fight.
It's like relief instead of like gratification.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not like that for most of the game. If it was like that for most of the game would suck. But it's like that for more than it should be. And I think that's a lot of the comments that I see is people kind of getting annoyed with stuff like that wasn't really a factor in the first game. But this is the biggest issue. And this is actually more important than the issue of these frustrating moments, is that after you fight that boss, you just get like a quest reward, and very likely it's a quest reward for a quest that you don't have yet. which it was my case in that too. So I got a quest item for a quest I didn't have yet. I essentially got nothing for beating that boss.
Yeah, Mick, fuck that.
So that's my biggest problem with this game is early in the game. I think in all of Act 1, there were essentially no rewards that were good. And just in general, the game does not reward you enough for exploring or for doing challenging moments in the game. And that is the biggest issue in the game is that the exploration is not as good because there's less things to find that are worthwhile.
Yeah, like the trinkets and stuff.
Yeah, so exactly. So like part of this guy's review, if we're going back to that, is he said, what did he say? He said like everything the game has improved on Hollow Knight in every way.
Yeah.
False. There's some changes that they made to the game itself. Like in the previous game, they had I think they called them charms. I'm just gonna call them trinkets because that's easier because that's what they are in every single other game. They're like rings or trinkets essentially. Those gave you a lot of like passive benefits that were, and there were a lot of really cool ones in the previous game. I don't know how many there were. I think there were like 40 or something like that. But you know, obviously there were some duds in there, but there were a lot of really good ones. In this game, they chose to do things a little differently. They chose to have three different colors of trinkets. They had red. I forget what the main ones, the good ones are. They're either green or blue. I can't, now that I'm thinking about it, I can't picture them. And then they had yellow ones. The yellow ones are essentially dog shit. Almost all of them are completely worthless. Some of them do like something very small. But for the most part, the yellow ones are garbage. The red ones are, you know, they're kind of like ninja tools in Sekiro or something, right? Like
Right.
they're like little, you know, the first one that you get, you're like throwing a knife. And all of them are like that. You're using some consumable in some fashion, you know, to do something, right? You're throwing something, you're putting a buff on yourself, yada yada yada. You're throwing a bomb. Whatever the case might be. Like you're using something active. Me personally, I did not like the red trinkets. And then the green and blue ones, whatever they are, I forget what they are. Forget which color they are. Those ones are the ones that you're kind of used to from the first game. There's a few issue with these good trinkets. I don't think there's a single great one in Act 1. And Act 1 is not short. Like
Yikes.
I think it took me 20 I mean, I fully explored Act 1, but I think it took me like a little over 20 hours to do Act 1, like fully exploring it. And I'm looking at Act 1, I looked at all the trinkets. The only trinket that I would say is good is the trinket that makes your red trinkets better. Is essentially all it does. But I didn't like the red trinkets. You see what I'm saying? So I've essentially gone through 20 hours of a game, 20 plus hours of a game, and I haven't found a single, you know, I haven't found a single thing that I feel like is valuable. Yeah, it's like there's nothing. And in the first game, there were things early that you could find that were good. I remember you can get a passive range increase to your just basic attack. I think there's a thing to let you heal faster pretty early on in the game as well, which is very valuable. Like there were things that changed the way you played the game early. And while a lot of the best trinkets were late, a lot of really good ones were pretty early in the game. So you like, you know, you'd be searching, and even if you found, you know, you just felt like behind difficult pathways, there would be a trinket of some kind or something valuable to get that made something click in your head that it's worth exploring. So there came a point, and that was the biggest issue with this point in the game, is this is kind of the point in the game at the end of Act 1 where I'm realizing there's not a lot of worthwhile things that you find from exploring, and I'm meeting a lot of challenges in the game that were very hard to explore, to where when both of those things click at the same time, you start getting a little fucking annoyed.
Yeah, it just I imagine just feels like not worth it almost.
Yeah, because it's like, I don't, the thing about it is, I don't know if I would have been as frustrated with some of these places that I'm talking about that I was a little frustrated with if I consistently was getting rewarded for doing them. Because then, like, it doesn't feel as frustrating because I'm like, oh, you know what? There's going to be something pretty good at the end of this. But since I already was thinking in my head at that point in the game, there's not going to be something good at the end of this.
It just feels like a chore.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's the thing that they fucked up on the most is actually not making these things difficult, which they could fix. With some of these difficult things, they don't have to make them easier. I think they just have to put, some benches before the bosses, some checkpoints in some of this parkouring to where you don't have to do it a second time, like something falls and then you can jump on it, right, and skip it all.
Right.
Like there's some things that they can do to just fix some of these annoying things. But they can't fix like rewards being behind stuff. They just have to add trinkets into the game and put them in places early on in the game, right? Like there's not enough. And even at the end of the game, once I had every single trinket, I really only had like 4 or 5 that I was willing to use. Like there wasn't a long list of trinkets that I thought were really good. And in the first game, there were a fuck ton that I was willing to use. So I think the game took a big step back in the equipment that you can find in the game that makes the game that like you think is cool.
Right, because part of the fun of it is like building your character. That's part of the fun of like leveling up and exploring these zones is like making a cool build for your character. And like when you can't do that, then it starts, I would imagine, starts to feel pretty like, yeah, like a chore.
Yeah, so there's just times where this game feels like a chore, and I think it less has to do with it being challenging and chore-like and more having to do with how it rewards you for doing those challenges. And I think that's the thing most people are missing is you just get rewarded better, and that's what's causing the negative feelings. Is the fact that you're getting lack of rewards. Because
Yeah.
I mean, in general, I think if you love the red trinkets, then you probably don't feel this way. I just think most people are not going to feel as fondly about the red ones as they do like the passive benefits that really change the way you play your character.
Yeah.
Also, they added crests, which are just like different attack patterns. I feel like those should have been more customizable. I I just think in general, if you're to really think about how you build your character, in the original game, you probably had 4 or 5 valuable trinkets on. In this game, you can only have 3 on. And I think if you could just trade your red trinkets for the valuable ones that give you passive benefits, almost everybody would.
Right.
But if that's the case, then why have the red trinkets in the game? I think people have to seriously ask themselves if you could trade your red trinkets for. It's funny that I can't remember if they're blue or green. If you can trade your red trinkets for the blue or the green ones, would you? And I think if your answer is yes, then the red trinkets just shouldn't be in there.
Yeah.
And that answer is yes for me. I would 100% just trade them one for one. If I could have 0 red trinkets and 4 green ones, I would. And there is a crest that lets you have 3 green trinkets, and I don't think it has a red one. But that one's heal just sucks. It's just dog shit. Like it changes the way you heal also. So it just feels like that one's unusable unless you're a god at the game and don't need to heal. So
Mm.
yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot there. Just I think some of the like with this guy's review saying all of the changes that they made were great. I don't agree with that because I think some of the changes that they made were bad. And I think it does actually affect the game a lot because with those trinkets not being as good as they used to be, it really affects the exploration. The exploration is such a big part of this game that it affects the game. And that is the biggest reason why I feel like it's a 9 instead of a 10. Because it sounds like I'm just harping on this game and I think it's awful. I think this game's excellent. I just think the first one was better. And these are the reasons why I feel like the first one was better. Because everything that's good about the first one is still in the second one. It's just they adjusted some of the stuff that was good about the first one. So some of the stuff is not quite as good as it was in the first one. Like all the main things are there, just some of the stuff's been adjusted, I don't think in a positive way.
Right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so it's like you can kind of like if you liked the first one, you can kind of count on still liking this one, but I don't think most people will like it as much, you know? There's definitely more content in it. Just like it's bigger. But I mean, I think that this just would have been like say they had 60 trinkets instead of 40 and they didn't have any of the red ones and there were just like 60 great trinkets in the game or there just whatever there were, because I don't remember how many there were in the first game. But there were like 50% more trinkets in the second game as there were in this one, and most of them were good. And just the map was like 50% bigger, which it kind of like seems like it is. I just think this game would have been better, you know?
Yeah, 100%.
I do agree. It just would have been another 10 out of 10. But with these changes, I think it is a little worse. And like I said, they could fix some of the frustrating things by adding some benches if they do kind of listen to people. The issue is I don't know if they're going to listen to people since there's so many just dick slurpers for this game.
Yeah.
Just full honey baked ham glazes going on. I don't know if they will because there's such a large group that's like, no, it's perfect.
Or it's the best sequel ever made.
Yeah, it's just like there's, they're like posting pics of themselves and they just have too many of their friends gassing them up essentially.
Yeah, basically.
Where they're like, I am perfect, aren't I? So it's like I don't know if they're going to listen to all of those and make no adjustments to some of these benches because, there's such a large group that's just like you can't do any wrong. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention. There was that first boss the first like challenging boss in the game, which is a guy at the end of Act 1. I remember reading a review too where I like got annoyed with the run back even though it's not super long. I just got annoyed with it. I remember reading a review where some guy said that it took him 30. He was complaining about the same thing, but it took him 30 plus tries to beat the boss.
Oh,
I
jeez.
would have gone fucking berserk if it like I just don't know if I would have fun with this game if I had to do that many
If you
runbacks.
were like that bad at it.
Well, I don't even necessarily think he's bad. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm just saying like at that point because it made me think of I guess somebody that is worse at the game, right? That just can't be fun at that point. And then thinking of this other boss that was in fucking Blighttown, you know?
Yeah.
Like like it took me again like 8-ish tries, something like that, and I didn't feel like he was very hard. If it took somebody 30 plus tries, that has to be like 3-4 hours at that point of just fighting one boss because there's such a time barrier to even starting him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like to those people that it's taking them a significant amount of tries and then there's so much of a time barrier to even try the boss, I could understand why somebody might start to really dislike this game. And again, there's just going to be a community that just says get good, but it's like, why is there so much of a barrier before even fighting the boss?
Yeah.
And I think that in general, frustration, it's not like it's not in other hard games. Because when I think I really think about Dark Souls 3 when I think about frustration. And I think in general, a lot of the Souls community can agree with this. I think Midir is the hardest fight in Dark Souls 3, right? That dragon.
Right. Yeah.
He is probably the most difficult fight. Maybe not if you're really good at the game, but as your first playthrough of the game. I think if you're really good at the game, or like pretty good at the game, like you've already played it a couple times, probably that Frost bitch is harder. I forget her name. Frida, I think.
Yeah.
I think I'm that. Yeah, I think she might be harder once you're like good at both fights. If you're great at both fights, then nothing. If you're great at fights in Dark Souls, then nothing's hard, right? But like as a first playthrough, he is probably the hardest fight. I don't think even though people play the game for difficulty, I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say Midir's their favorite fight. I don't know if I've ever heard anyone say that because he's a frustrating fight. It's not like he's just difficult. Like he's running away from you constantly. And then he like breathes on you or does some rapid attack or like charges you. And then you get a chance to hit him like 1 to 3 times and then he flies away from you and runs again. You know what I mean? Like it's a really frustrating fight to do.
Right, like it's annoying.
So while that is the most difficult fight in that game, as far as a first time player, nobody like I've literally never heard anyone say it's their favorite fight, which does not mean it's nobody. I'm sure for a couple people it's their favorite fight. For the most part, I hear like Nameless King, or I do hear that Frost. Like that fight's really cool, right? In the DLC, where
Yeah.
it's like that 3-phase fight. Like that one's an awesome one. I hear that one a lot. I hear Nameless King a lot. Like I've heard some other fights a couple times. I've heard like the Twin Princes, right? Like there's some very epic fights in that game. I don't know if I've ever heard Midir, and that's just a thing. Sometimes things can be difficult, but if they're frustrating, it's not going to be your favorite.
Right, because it's not fun, it's work.
Yeah, and I think some of the apologists need to realize that for this game. I understand it's your favorite game, or like Hollow Knight was. It doesn't mean every aspect of this game's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said the other day, you can still criticize things you love. Like I fucking love Dragon Age, but the series is not without its fucking flaws.
Yeah, and even this game, I love this game. I just got some fucking problems. I got some beef. But like I can't understate how much I love this game. I just think it could have been better. And in a way too, maybe some people protect it cuz it's like 3 people working on the game.
Right.
These guys are sweethearts of the industry now. They're like the fans' choice of just humans, which I get. I like these guys. Like I like them.
Right, but how can you expect them to improve on future games or whatnot if you just tell them everything they do is perfect?
Yeah, we can't just gas them up. So like I do think I think that simultaneously we can be like these XYZ, these are problems. Also, you guys, this is a giant accomplishment for you guys regardless of these being problems, right?
Right.
Like for 3 people to make a game that's the first game that's as good as that was and a game that's as good as this one, it's such a monumental accomplishment. Like it's absurd how good both these games are. So you can simultaneously acknowledge that these games are absurdly good and criticize at the same time. It doesn't just have to be all gas.
Yeah, you can acknowledge where they're amazing while also acknowledging that, it could have been better.
And like I'm not super mad about the red trinkets. I just think it was a miss. And obviously not everyone I know not everyone will agree with that cuz some people really like using consumes. I'm on the opposite side of that. Me in general, I don't like using consumes. I'd rather just have passives. And the one thing that I really dislike about the consumes is that you in general don't get enough resources to spam them.
Right.
So if that's the case for consumes, I generally just use them very sparingly. But then if I'm using them very sparingly, I'm not excited when I get a new one because it's not something I use very often. So it's not like I didn't use them at all. I just didn't use them very much because if I did use them a lot, I wouldn't be able to use them because I wouldn't have been able to because I wouldn't have had the resources
Right,
to.
right.
So it's like this weird, like it's this weird wheel where if you use them a ton, you can't use them a lot anymore. And if you don't use them at all, then they don't feel very cool. And I just think in general, consumes are better once you're already good at the game, not before you're good at the game.
Yeah.
Because when you're already good at the game, you know exactly how much to use and what parts of the game are challenging enough to use them on. And when you're first playing a game, you don't necessarily know those things.
Right.
But like I said, I don't think it's odd for them to try that. I just don't think it really worked. And yeah, I mean, those are the various reasons why I think the game was a 9 instead of a 10, which I think it easily could have been a 10. But I think all these people slurping online saying it's like the best. Like I remember I was talking shit like a couple days in, and I told you I was like I'm gonna look up some reviews, and the first review that I found just simply said best sequel ever made,
Yeah.
and I was just like these guys are out of their fucking minds. But I love that shit.
I think for some people, it's just like their favorite game and they're going to love it no matter what.
Yeah, but I mean, dude, even like some games that I really love, I can still acknowledge. So like Final Fantasy X is one of my favorite games ever, right?
Yeah.
I can still acknowledge that Titus is a cringer. I'm not like some Titus apologist.
But like endearingly so.
Well, no, I think he's a great character because I mean, essentially he's been isekai'd, right? So like him being a cringer and him being excited about everything.
Isn't he's also like 15 or some shit.
Yeah, like it lets you be excited because you're seeing it through his gaze, right? So it's like it would be like if he was like cool, calm, and collected, and he was seeing all these new things, and he just didn't give a shit. Like that wouldn't be as good as him being as excitable, you know?
Yeah.
So like I think he really works as a character, but even though I think he works as a character, he's not my favorite character and I know he's fucking cringy, you know?
Yeah.
It's like when people say shit like that, I'm like, yeah, he is cringy. Like you're right. Like he is. I still love the game. I don't just like change it in my mind to where he's not, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like any game that like there are like air quotes perfect games, but every game has some flaws, you know? Like even Expedition 33, like I just felt like some of the RPG elements were average, right? I felt like the weapon system was average. I felt like leveling up was average. It's just some of the other things in the game were so above what you would expect that I felt like the game was still 10 out of 10. I didn't literally think everything about the game was perfect, you
What a
know?
fucking game, too, man.
Yeah, yeah, I just that's the tone that I'm getting from some of these reviewers and some of the stuff that I see is just the game can do no wrong. And then I think there's some real complaints that are valid that people are just glossing over, saying just play the game for just play the game 10 times, you
Just get
know?
good.
Yeah, just play the game until you don't exist anymore and this won't be a problem anymore. And it's like, yeah, but I don't want to do that.
Yeah, except that I don't want to do that because this mechanic is annoying to me.
Well, and also in general, like I like my first couple playthroughs. Like I don't play the Dark Souls games 50 times. Like I don't have fun in Dark Souls games once they're easy. And
Right.
these games play just like Dark Souls games. Like once you know everything that's coming and you're good at dodging everything in the game and you can't really be challenged anymore, at that point I don't think they're fun anymore. So the whole like rhetoric of just like play the game endlessly until you can't fail anymore. Yeah, if I did that I wouldn't be enjoying myself.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's in general my take on the game. Game's excellent, 9 out of 10, but there's some flaws that are the reason why it's not a 10 out of 10 game. I think some of it's fixable, but I think like I don't think they're just going to add 20 trinkets into the game that are useful and put like 5 of them in the first act. You know what I mean? Like I just
Yeah,
don't think they're
yeah.
going to do that. Like they could do that, but if they did that, it probably would go up at least to a 9.5, but maybe even a 10 in my eyes. But I just don't think they're going to do that cuz that would be a lot of changes, you know? And since nobody's really saying that, I don't see why they would either.
Yeah. Seems like most people's complaint is with the like areas where there's just a shit ton of platforming before the boss.
Yeah, that and then the double damage. But like I said, I think the double damage is a non-issue.
I think it's the combination.
Yeah, it's just like you're platforming, it's a hard section, and then you just run into some guy that smokes you. I just don't think that guy should smoke you, other than bosses. Because, like I said, one thing about bosses too that makes it so you very rarely one shot them is just if you bump into them, you take 2 damage also.
Yeah.
So, and they like move in odd ways. Like some of them will like hover and like hover slightly, or like they'll move a little bit to the left before they do something. You know what I mean? So before you know those things, it's very easy for you to just bump into them a couple times and then die. Like before you really know the way they move.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So yeah, it's just like it's with Dark Souls stuff like that. You don't like bump into stuff and then it just like kills you, right? So you don't get some of those like weird deaths on your first couple tries. And you can kind of just like have a good build in some of the Souls games, and your build's good versus the boss, and you just smoke it. And then other people don't have as good of a build, so then they get stuck on that boss, and then so not everybody gets the same exact experience. And like the difficulty really is a lot more variable, I think, in the Souls games
Yeah.
as opposed to this one where. But that one thing too is I felt like some of the late game bosses were too easy. I think two of the late game bosses in the third act, I one shot. And I was kind of scratching my head, being like, I haven't one shot like anything yet. You know
Because
what I mean?
stuff,
I
yeah,
like,
you said bosses in the earlier game were like pretty challenging.
well, not the very beginning, but like the
Earlier.
yeah, like I was getting to the very late stuff, and I thought this was the point where they were gonna ramp up, you know. and the game was gonna get like challenging. Because in a way, the third act's a bit optional. Like
Yeah.
you can accidentally miss it. So I thought since it was like kind of optional, some of these third act bosses would be insane, and they would take me like 20 tries or something, and nothing really happened with that. So I felt like some of the late game bosses were a little too easy. I would say I think they could make them harder. And then yeah, I don't know, but I wasn't like disappointed or anything. With the bosses in general, I think the bosses in general were good. I was just mainly disappointed with like the gear you could equip, which then affects the exploration. So it's kind of like a little bit of a rotating problem.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I think that's in general my take on the game. Game was awesome. Kind of crazy that they just released it out of nowhere.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that they were just like, "Hey, this game is coming out next week" or something like that.
Yeah, it was fucking insane. I was just like looked at my wish list on Steam and I was like, huh? Looked at the news. I was like, oh, holy shit. Okay. Because this game was a bit of a myth. Some people thought it just was never going to come out because they just weren't, they were keeping it all hush.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of people that were concerned, like, is this game even being made? And they're just like, it is being made. It's out, next week. And it's, 50 to twice as big, 50% to 100% bigger than the first one. So enjoy. And you're just like, huh? This guy's on crack? But yeah, I mean, that was the main thing we are going to talk about. We had a couple other things to talk about, though, I think,
Yeah, we did.
to a much lesser extent.
Um, oh, where did I have it? Final Fantasy Tactics, the remaster. You initially were not very excited about it.
I
Um,
was not.
and now you're pretty stoked.
I am stoked. I am a little annoyed because this is the opposite of Hollow Knight, where I scratched my head and I'm like, why is this game $50?
Ah, yeah.
That's initially why I wasn't gonna get it because I mean I've already played the game a bunch. I still have it on my PlayStation. I could just fire it up whenever I want. It's like not like I can't play it, right?
Right.
So I'm like, why would I pay $50 for this game I can already play? What additions have you made to make me excited? And they did add some stuff like
Voice
they added
acting?
voice. Yeah, they added voice acting, but I'm not going to pay $50 for voice acting. You know what I mean? So like they added voice acting, they added quality of life stuff. And so that's initially all I thought they added, right?
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to pay $50. Like I'll still get it, but I'll get it when a year later when it's like 50% off or something. You know what I mean? Like I'm not paying 50 for this.
For like a game you already have, yeah.
Yeah, but like so and just in general, I still don't think the game's worth 50. I think some of these remasters cost way too much. Like I don't know. I think the game should be like $30 personally. How do you feel about that?
Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that um I think that they just know that it's a Final Fantasy title. It's people are gonna pay $50 for it. But I don't know
Yeah.
if a game where you're largely just re-releasing the same exact thing is worth the cost of a brand new game.
Yeah, like $10 less than or I guess $20 less than a new AAA title
Yeah.
because they're charging like 70 now. Like I just don't know how you sell that in my head to where like a 20-year-old game, I guess more 27-year-old game, something like that.
Yeah, we're really old.
27-year-old game. Yeah. How is that? How do you add voice acting and some quality of life to that game and it's $50?
Because it's name brand.
You know what I mean? So like that was the reason why I was kind of like a little annoyed with them. Or this is one of my favorite games. It's one of the few games that I would say is a 10. I know I've talked about Expedition 33, I've talked about Hollow Knight. Both those games are 10s to me. So maybe it seems like I give everything a 10. I would say there's like 10 or so games that I think are 10s overall, right? There aren't a
Right.
ton. It's not a long list. And granted, I haven't played everything. I've been selective, so there would be more if I played like literally every single. But I didn't have every console growing up. You know what I mean? I didn't have access to literally every single game. So there were some that I missed that I probably would have felt like were a 10.
Right.
But yeah, this is one of the games that I think is one of the best games ever made. If you like that genre. So, to some extent I was excited, but then I saw that 50 tag and it's not like I couldn't afford that. It's just there's a certain amount of it that feels like the principle.
Right.
It's like I'm looking at it, it's like I could buy this. But why should you guys are kind of bullshitting me?
Yeah.
So to some extent, I feel that way with some of these prices where I'm just like, you guys are bullying me. I'm not going to do it. But then I did get excited when they said that they were going to add a hard mode.
Right. That's how they gotcha.
They got me big. Yeah, I got rock hard when they said that. It was crazy.
Cookie hard?
Don't get into that, no, please.
Why not?
Because just that's nobody needs to know about that. So wait, can we go over something really quick?
Yeah, let's go over it.
Did you come up with a name? Because I'm still going by Goose
Uh,
or the Drizzle, depending.
no. We vetoed the drizzle. The drizzle isn't happening.
Well, we soft vetoed the Drizzle.
No, we vetoed the drizzle.
Softly though. But yeah, go on. What did you come up with a name? You got anything yet?
I don't have anything for sure.
Okay. Oh, all right.
You're getting off topic.
Yeah, what was I saying? The hard mode?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, in general, I think at a glance, maybe that shouldn't be enough. But I think, when you initially play these games for the first time, like tactics is pretty hard your first playthrough. But it's only hard because you don't know what to abuse in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of these like Final Fantasy RPGs and RPGs in general, if they have a good system, it's usually a good system because there's a lot you can do with it. And if you do maximize it, you do kind of abuse the game in certain fashion. So people that love the games, they're good at abusing them. But then once you can abuse the game's mechanics, the game becomes very easy. So them adding a hard mode, it like really adds a lot. And it's something I wish they did with all these remasters for games that really have systems that you can abuse. Because
Yeah.
now there's a reason for me to abuse the game. All this knowledge that I have, like, I can do it and I won't just like wreck the game, hopefully. Like I will to have needed to do those things to win. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So now I'm very excited because I can use the knowledge that I have for a reason other than to just be, it's not needless now, I guess.
Yeah. I see. Yeah, I got you.
I can see if some of the strong builds that I have really can hold up to a harder difficulty. So it adds. Now I am actually excited, even though I still feel like they're swindling me, and I still feel like they're taking advantage of my feelings.
But you're more okay with it.
I'm a little more okay with it than I was a few weeks ago when I did not know there was a hard mode. That's honestly when they were talking about doing the Final Fantasy VII remake or whatever. That's what I was hoping they would do too. Is it would be a very similar game to the first one, and they'd add a hard mode.
But no.
I think that is no. They decided to not do that. They completely changed the game, and then they added a hard mode once you beat the game. You out of your fucking minds?
Well, no one likes to play like turn-based games anymore,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3.
That's why Baldur's Gate and
Sucked.
Expedition 33 did so poorly.
Yeah.
Because no one likes those.
Humans have just changed, just fundamentally, and they just don't like this thing that they used to love before. I like totally understand to an extent something's trending, right?
Yeah.
But I think a trend isn't an absolute. And so if you want to make more fast-paced games in general, and that's just what you see in the industry, that makes sense to me. But to just say like this thing that humans like has evaporated It's like, oh, nobody, like, what did, has chess just died too?
Yeah, no,
Let's make chess
no one
faster.
plays chess anymore.
Yeah, these things, like, people like using their brain, people like thinking, people like turn-based stuff. Just because like action is more integrated in most things does not mean that turn-based needs to just completely go away. So I do think it's funny when these companies are just like, nope, it's done. And then they have to be reminded every few years that people still love it.
I mean, Baldur's Gate, come on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, again with all those apologists that there was a group of people complaining that it wasn't real time with pause.
Yeah,
I would I was close to just hunting them all down. I decided not to, but
I mean, sorry
I was
also to
almost
harp
there.
on this again, but going back to people saying, or the companies saying that people don't like real time, or they don't like turn based anymore. Yet every single time a new Dragon Age game comes out, everyone complains it's not turn based, even though Dragon Age has never been turn based. But for some reason, these people have convinced themselves in their minds that Dragon Age Origins was turn based. But every time, it should have been turn based, should have been turn based, should have been turn based. People want turn based games. People like that
Yeah.
gameplay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I am pretty hyped for Final Fantasy. It does. Hopefully, I get this episode out before it comes out, but it's coming out soonish. Um, so I'm definitely gonna play that one. I don't know how much I'm gonna have to say about it after it. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but it's not gonna be like Hollow Knight where I have a where I'm gonna rant for a really long time. I would imagine.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Like there are some things that just drive me fucking insane. Like I mean, they made that Star Ocean Second Story remake or whatever,
Yeah.
where that one was not like Final Fantasy, where they really changed. They just changed a few things, but they changed some stuff. Where I'm just thinking in my head, why? Like some of the characters that were really strong, they made weaker. Like the main, because you can choose between two main characters. The main male character, his final move, I think it's called Mirror Slash. They just made it suck.
Oh, why? Why would you do that?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Why? Like I'm playing the game and I get it and I'm like, oh hell yeah, now I'm gonna start spamming this move and then it's just garbage. And then I look it up online and it was nerfed. And I'm just scratching my head like, what was the point of that? Like all of a sudden this thing that I really enjoyed that I knew was great in the first game, it was too good. Make it worse. It's his last fucking move. Now, if his fourth move was his best move and he had like 20 moves, maybe nerf that because it was an accident, right? That move was supposed to be OP. It's his last move.
Yeah, you're supposed to feel godlike when you use that.
So if they change shit like that in tactics, I will have something to say. You can fucking count on it. But I don't think that they will. Hopefully. Yeah, you got me worried a little bit.
Me.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned now all of a sudden.
I think you'll be
Um
fine.
I think it's going to be fine. I just sometimes these companies do weird shit where they try and balance shit that doesn't need to be balanced. Like it's some PvP game. Well, that's a little OP. People are spamming this. Let them have fun, dipshit. We're policing fun now. We don't want these gamers getting too strong now.
Speaking of, can I go on a side tangent momentarily about a game that I play?
Please.
So Paleo, right? Is basically, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like one of those like cozy farming sims, kind of like a Stardew or something, but it's an MMO. Um, and this game is so fucking grindy for materials. Like in most farming sims that you play, the more you advance and level up and get new equipment for your farm, the easier it gets to come by money. Um, and you can really get pretty rich and just kind of start, buying whatever you want. And that was kind of what I expected from Palia. But no, they want you dirt poor. They want you to grind your soul away in this game. And it drives me absolutely crazy because I just like I've done the work, right? I've done a lot of hunting and mining and farming, and they've added ranching now, and I'm already about to max that out, but it's not very profitable. And anything that gets super profitable, when players find a way to make something super profitable, they nerf it. Like they just want you grinding forever, and it drives me crazy. Like just let me get rich so that I can play The Sims and decorate however I want to. That's all I want.
But that's a little different though, right? Because you interact with other people.
Yeah, you do interact with other people, and I understand that to some extent they want you to keep engaging with the world and they want you to keep playing with other people and some stuff, but it is ridiculous. It is like it's a little extreme.
Do you trade with other people?
No, that's the other thing that's
Okay,
frustrating.
so you getting rich doesn't really matter in the scope of other
Yeah, it
players.
doesn't affect other players if I'm filthy rich.
Yeah.
You can't gift things to players. The only system they have where you can sort of do that is they have a request system. So you can place a request for an item or material, but it has to be an item that you've gathered before. So, like, let's say I have a quest to get a rare fish. If I've never caught that fish, I can't request it. Um, I just like I have to fish it. But if I have caught it before, I can request it, and maybe someone will fulfill that request. But obviously with rare items, people are less likely to give over their rare items. Um but even if I wanted like materials, let's say I needed iron to make arrows so I can go hunting in Bahari Bay and also farm more iron. If I request iron, I'm only going to get one iron bar. Like, I can't request like 10 iron bars. Like, it's only one. It's very limited. Um, you can trade, you can trade a few things. Like, you can trade plushies because they have no impact on the game whatsoever. So there's like little stations you can go to set up a trade with someone for plushies, which are just a collectible within the game. And you can trade artifacts, which are like a mechanic you need in the new zone from the expansion. But that's it. So like I do just wish that I didn't have to grind so much materials, or that there was something that made like the new expansion is out, and I don't really want to be going back to old zones or beginner zones to farm materials just so I can build decor. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Yeah, this is getting me fucking riled up, bro. I think I'm just done with games now. I think I'm never going to play again.